Okay, well, we're going to make a start now. Good morning to everybody if you're on my side of the world, or good afternoon if you're on the other side of the world to me. We have another in our KwikLearn series today, and today's title is MRDCL, QPSMR, Snap or Reflect, which product is best for me? And it's going to be presented by myself, Phil Hearn, and I've got Nikki Sunga with us, who's also going to do a section in the middle of this presentation today. And what this is about is that in market research, there are a proliferation of products now out there. Back in, certainly in my younger days, people used to just use one piece of software to do everything. And now I think more and more you find different tools that do different specialist things that cover all aspects of market research, right through from data collection to reporting. Today we're focusing on analysis and reporting, and we have a number of products in this space. And the idea of this KwikLearn webinar is really about suggesting perhaps the best way that you can work and which products might be most suitable for you. So I'm going to start by admitting to a lack of truth, if you like, in our email that we sent out inviting you to this. It said MRDCL, QPSMR, Snap or Reflect, and here's something that many people don't know yet, but actually we are replacing Reflect in the very near future with a product called Resolve, which will do pretty much everything the Reflect does, but it will also allow you, for example, to save your favorite variables that you want to work on, produce some charts and so on. So it goes a bit further than Reflect does. We will have a separate webinar on that in the next couple of months to take you through that. There's also an advanced version of that, a premium version of that, that will do much more than that. And I'll be talking a little bit about that as I go through this session. But the product that's not known to many people, or anybody hardly, I think, is the Seaways platform, which is something new, which is an online data collection, but more importantly, a data visualization tool so that you can easily produce dashboards from your market research surveys. And I'll be talking about that again amongst the different products today. So today's webinar is about 5 products, but only 3 of the ones that were on our mail shot that went out, mainly because most people wouldn't have recognized Resolve and the Seaways platform. So what we're going to look at today, really, this KwikLearn webinar, I hope you get 3 things from it. You might think that one of the things we ought to learn is how to spell, and we should spell quick as Q-U-I-C-K rather than Q-W-I-K, but that's what we've called it, and we're sticking with it now. But there's 3 things, or 3 parts to this, mini webinar today. The first is to think about the things that are important when you buy and use software. I'm going to ask you at points in this to try and sort of think a bit wider about what you might like to do rather than what perhaps you do now. Perhaps be a bit self-critical in places, but open up your mind to perhaps different ways of working. Then after that, Nikki's going to take over, and she's going to take you through 5 different scenarios of perhaps the types of work that you actually handle, or the ways that you actually work. And I'm not saying any of those five scenarios will match exactly what you do day by day. We've obviously slightly oversimplified that, but just to show you how different products and different combination of products can help you. And then finally, I'm going to do quite a short session. This is not a product sales or demonstration, really. It's more awareness or a way of, I hope, making you perhaps reappraise the way you work at the moment, and to perhaps think a little bit outside your perhaps normal ways of working. And I'm going to give you a very quick overview of MRDC's products that I've been referring to in this session, and just sort of show you or bring them to life very briefly, really literally 1 minute per product almost, just to sort of make it clear how they fit together and what each product does. So, whoops, I've gone the wrong way. So the first thing to say is here that when you're using software, I suppose what you're doing is you're thinking, well, where am I starting and where do I want to finish? These are the two key questions. So if you want to, for example, conduct online surveys and just get some quick tables out of that, that's absolutely fine. Your starting point is collecting or perhaps producing a questionnaire so that you can collect data online, and your finishing point might be tables. So the software you need fills in those bits in between. So it starts with getting a questionnaire built and then collecting data actually for that questionnaire, and moving it through the processes as you go through to get to tables. If your goal is perhaps to produce an online dashboard, but you already perhaps get the data provided by your client or someone else collects the data, your starting point will be data and your finishing point will be an online dashboard. So the first thing we've got to do is to think of where we start and where we finish, and that will obviously influence heavily what software you use, and I'm sure you've already gone through that process already, so I'm not really teaching anything you haven't thought about already. One thing that I think sometimes underestimated is thinking about who is going to use the software, because just like anything else, if you like, in life, software comes from being incredibly easy to use, that anybody could use, right through to needing experts to use. And I think sometimes that's underestimated. And of course, there's obviously grades in between. There's some software where you can do the basic things easily, but you need experienced people or regular users to get the best out of the more advanced features in there. So thinking about who is using the software, I think, is something that's underestimated and something that we'll be touching on a few times today. But I want to, before we go any further, I want to actually, there's a poll that we can run on these wonderful online webinars, and I'd just like to get some feedback, really, just to see what the audience we have here come up with. And the question I'd like to ask you, that, and before you click on the answer when it comes up in a minute, is just perhaps think a little bit more widely. Do you use the same software tools for every project that you run? So that's the question that I'd like you to answer, that should be popping up now. So do you use the same software tools for a project you run? So by that I mean, do you have a process where you use that tool to collect the data, that to analyze it, and that to produce your PowerPoint reports, or whatever it is you do? So just to perhaps give some idea of whether you just use one tool or you use a range of tools. And hopefully I'll get some feedback on that in just a second. So please press away there if you've got that. And for some reason, the technology for me is not showing me the result. So maybe I've done something wrong. Okay, I think I have to come back to that because I can't see the results at the minute. I thought they were coming through. Ah, people are still voting, sorry. Let me give you a little bit more time. I don't know what to expect here in terms of results, I must admit. I'm interested. So we'll just give you another 10, 15, 20 seconds just to get that figure through as everybody votes away. So do you just use one sort of same process more or less for every project? So is it the same process that people use for every project that you handle? And of course, if it's one project, it will be the same, of course, but I suspect most of you out there work for research agencies and handle a number of projects. So the results, well, it's a very interesting split, actually. Do you know what? I was hoping it was going to be 50-50, and the results I'm getting up show 54 say yes and 46 say no. So that's quite an interesting split. I did wonder if it would be about 50-50, but it's pretty much spot on. So thank you for voting that. All right, so I think something applies here to both the people who said yes to that, where they do use the same system. I think here's an opportunity I'd like to say to them, you know, should you be looking at other ways of doing things? Should you be looking at having other tools to handle the work and perhaps offer clients more and improve your productivity? And certainly even the ones that already use more than one method, if you like, for processing their surveys, I still think it's always worth looking wider. You've already obviously done that already, but it may be you just handle different types of work already, so you have to. But you know, I still think there's scope for looking at different ways of offering more. So I'm having trouble with my slides this morning. Sorry. So that's the first question that we've looked at, and I'd like to also look at considering and perhaps opening your minds up to thinking, perhaps just using your imagination, if there was something, a software tool that was out there that could bring you more business, what would it be? So perhaps just answer, there's no poll on this one, just think that one for yourself as we go through the next parts of this webinar. So just perhaps give that a second to think, is there anything that you do now where if there was a software tool that magically did something for you, perhaps not magically, that's probably a little bit too far, but you know, made something a lot more easy, what would that tool be? So you can answer that one for yourself, because I think we'll probably get a fairly wide range of different answers on that. So perhaps just give some thought to if there was one software tool that you could have that would make life easier for you, either so that you got more business, you could do it more efficiently, you could do it more cheaply, more quickly, what would that tool be? All right, well, we're going to carry on now and look at some other aspects before Nikki takes us through some different scenarios that you might consider. I think choice is quite an important thing when it comes to software, and I think it applies to most things. You know, if you were to ask a man to come round and mend the washing machine you got at home because it was not working, if he turned up with just a hammer, I think you'll probably tell him to go away quite quickly. And although that's a slightly extreme way of putting it, I think also, you know, when you think of your clients will expect that you've got all the tools you need to provide them with the best possible service and the best possible data or whatever it is you supply to them. So I think having the tools for flexibility, I'm having trouble with my mouse this morning. It seems to be moving on its own. I'm really not touching it. Having all the tools you need for flexibility is really important so that you can provide clients with what they want. So if they want at the end of their project a PowerPoint presentation, you can do that easily. If they want their tables in a hyperlinked Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets, you can do all of that. Whatever it is they want, it should be easy for you to supply, or as easy as possible to supply. And also, you want to be looking at your costs. You don't want software that's just adding to your costs. Yes, you might say, what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make you buy more software. And yes, of course, that's true in some sense, but actually, I think it's about being an agile business. We buy software, as a software company, we buy software to help us do our business, whether that's our marketing or whatever it might be. And I'm never afraid myself to spend money on the software tools that make us more efficient in some way. And I think it's important sometimes that I have seen companies sort of, you know, take time or take an unexpectedly long time to consider whether to spend $1,000 on a piece of software when that piece of software might save them $10,000 or bring them in $20,000 of business. So, you know, spending money to reduce costs or to be able to offer more sometimes is quite important, I think. And the one size fits all trap, I think, is something we all tend to fall into. We all do that. I'm one who, I'm sure at times I've tried, I'm very, very proficient at making Excel do things. So I'm often tempted to try and do things in Excel. I can program Excel, for example. So if I've got a small task to do, I want to mess about with some numbers, I often do it in Excel because I've got that ability. But I try, it's easy to make everything fit into one bit of software that you know how to work, but actually there's something better out there, and taking the time to find that. So our software breaks down into 5 areas: sort of data collection, data analysis, data management, charting and reporting, and online reporting. They're the sort of areas that our software covers. We're going to look at the products that we're talking about today now, and the products that we offer look a sort of mesmerizing sort of bunch of that arguably are too many, you might think, but there's a good reason why we have these different tools. And if you Google around now looking for software for market research, you'll find a lot of tools that do different things and they're by necessity going to overlap. I think going back again, for people who have been in the business for 20 years or more like me, there was a tendency 20 years ago and 15 years ago to buy one piece of software that done everything, because that's all there was, and because most surveys were paper surveys that were keyed in and you produced tables, and from those tables someone made some slides. Now we do all sorts of different things. We collect data in different ways, we report data different ways, we produce information different ways. So as a result of that, you're going to find that software tools are going to overlap, and the temptation to buy a tool that is like an end-to-end that does everything is very great, because it's nice to have one tool that does everything. But of course the downside of that is that you're perhaps using a tool that isn't the most effective at doing it, actually costs you money, because it either can't do what you want, or it does it very badly or inefficiently. And so looking to have multiple tools to do what you need, I think, has become a necessity in this modern day. Sure, if you can find one tool that does everything that you want, absolutely great. So for example, if your main function in your company is multivariate statistics and your client supplied the data, a very specialized niche, that would be fine to do everything in SPSS, for example, because SPSS is an excellent program of multivariate analysis. However, if you want to do some tables or some online reporting, that might not be the tool for you. So starting with a core product is fine, and using that perhaps for most of your work, but then looking for specialist stuff, I think, tends to be the way you've got to go. So to look at our products, before Nikki takes you through some different scenarios, just a very quick overview of what they do here. And so if you just perhaps try and, for those that don't know us very well or aren't familiar with our products, try and commit as much as you can of this to memory. So QPSMR is for data collection for paper surveys, for CATI surveys, CATI standing for computer assisted telephone interviews, interviewing, tabulations, and it uses an easy use interface. So it's aimed at people who are not specialists perhaps in producing market research analysis, but they know what a questionnaire is, and they know what tables are, they know what a questionnaire is, they know what a CATI interview is. So, but an easy to use interface. Whereas MRDCL, which is our tabulation software, is driven by a scripting language. So that's very much aimed at people who I would call are data processing professionals, who are probably spending most of their life, if not all of it, producing analysis and managing data and analyzing data. An early announcement here, although it is quite early because it's not till the end of the year, but will be by the end of this year, MRDCL will also have an add-on that will let you report into Excel and PowerPoint. It's going to have a scripting language in it so that you can take figures from tables and push them directly into Excel charts, infographics, and so on, and PowerPoint as well. So that's something that's coming later this year, but we thought we'd give you a little announcement of that now. Snap is another product that we offer, and that, I guess, is the nearest that we come anyway, and probably most companies come out there at all, as an end-to-end package. So it offers you data collection, whether that's paper, CAPI, COWI, even scanning, which is not listed there. Does tabulations, reports, smart reports, database connectivity, really does a bit of everything that you might want to do. The Seaways platform, which I introduced very briefly at the beginning, that does do what I call sort of customer feedback type questionnaires. So it does do COWI, computer assisted web interviewing, but it's mainly for the sort of customer feedback, the lighter questionnaires, not the heavy duty perhaps market research questionnaires that run to 30-minute interviews that we're talking about here. It's really much for the feedback type things that you get after a company interaction. But that has a very powerful data merging and management tool so that you can pull data together from surveys, from business information, and so on, KPIs, sales data. So you can offer, as a research agency, more than just producing a dashboard of your survey. You can pull in other relevant data and produce some really high quality data visualization tools, and again, the data visualization tools within the Seaways platform, I think, are pretty much unmatched when it comes to anything to do with market research data. We looked at Resolve earlier as well. That's a replacement for Reflect. Resolve Base is our free version, which is now available. That does pretty much what Reflect does, with a little bit more added in, some nice, a few more tools for managing questions and so on. Also has a simple charting option on the back. So that's for a project that's already been processed in our software that you want executives or your clients maybe to do secondary analysis and charting. And we'll be shortly releasing Resolve Premium, which is a paid-for version, which allows you to build in customizable analysis and automated reporting. So these are the tools that we have. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Nikki, who's going to take us through perhaps, I think it's 5 scenarios that perhaps look at different ways that you might work. As I say, none of these may apply to you. The idea here is to look at perhaps different options that different companies perhaps trigger ideas in your head. But I'll ask you please to try and keep in your mind that point I made earlier on, to think about what would be the one thing that would improve your company in terms of whether it be productivity, what you're going to offer clients, and so on. So I'm going to hand over to Nikki now, and I'll be back to wrap up at the end.
Okay, thank you so much, Phil, for that. Now, I'll be showing you some scenarios that we have here. So none of these scenarios may fit your needs, but hopefully one of them will give you some ideas as how you can improve your productivity and offer your clients more. So our big goal for the last 3 years has been given to our clients more choices and offer better connected software that makes our client deliver much better. So anyway, before I start, the start symbol, or the 2-star symbol that we have in MRDCL and Resolve under charts, PDF, and reporting indicates that these are the new automated reporting features that will link in MRDCL and Resolve to Excel reports and PowerPoint presentation. But the facilities will not be available until end of 2020. So the scenario 1 that we have means that one product does everything. So it's probably a companies who are conducting online surveys and doing some paper surveys like copy interview, something like that. So we probably call this a typical online research agencies. So some online companies, is all they want to do is to get some cross-tabulations with some standard banners on it, such as gender, region, and age, and sort of demographic, something like that. So they might also, they might or might not want to give their client access to the data, so that they can do some tables on their own or some count charts, and maybe they want to put those charts and report to themselves, or if they want, the clients want a copy of some data, they can send reports and charts through PDF. So next slide will be, there is a position where Snap would do everything for them, because as we all know, some of our clients know that it has 3 distinct modules that Snap collects data, analyze data, and will let you report in terms of charts and PDF. Snap also create paper, copy, and online surveys to manage and deploy your surveys and to generate some analysis and reports. Okay, so next scenario will be on the scenario 2. We will be seeing it is more complicated because some work is like 50-50 easy and 50 some is difficult, something like that. So this is somebody who is not using any MRDCL or MRDC software products for data collection. And with that, you don't want your skill staff doing easy work for many projects, right? So you might want our clients to be able to see their data to produce some reports, presentations, and some insight of the data. So MRDCL and Resolve is one of the ideal combination that we have. So they use all the same engine. They use to make a survey available in each product in just a second, such as a basic using like Survey Monkey for online surveys, or Survey to Go. So for using data, we actually use SPSS to bring into the system to do analysis, and the analysis they want to do might be a mixture in a sense of like a quite complex of tracking some studies that they have. So some complex surveys that we have, such as complex data, we can call that like hierarchical data, something like that. So perhaps all the companies that we have, or half of their business, the quite complex variables such as complex tables, or the other half of it is generally straightforward to their stuff. So we actually talk about that in the scenario one, where they producing a table of every questions via standard banner of region, age, demographics, and they also want their researchers to get access to most projects so that they can have some analysis, not only get standard table that they can work, but they want to explore some deeper and see which brands they prefer against each group who are like high income, or like people or clients who want a particular brand. So they really want to dig deeper on the data, which is like more interesting to them. So for online dashboarding, just to tell you, it is easy to move the data from MRDCL, QPSMR, or Resolve into CYS platform, like you can see in the PowerPoint. They also like the data in dashboard, so their client or their people who have this data can explore in a bit more sense. So it's really a big range that we are trying to achieve in this scenario too. So in terms of wide range of projects that they take on, in the terms of different people that who wanted different things on their analysis, may want some difficult stuff to be done. So we can see in this scenario too, like we have a range of those that all come together, that might look a lot of products. Like this one, we have 5 products or 5 things we highlighted in yellow to see which products will achieve like QPSMR, MRDCL, Resolve. That's all part of the same family of products that we have in MRDC. So by using all the modules of those products together, that's very simple process and no conversion involved. So they are all using the same engine to do their analysis. Means to say there's no work involved in moving them into different platform. Like for example, that QPSMR, let's do the people's simple products, so you don't need a highly skilled staff in QPSMR. So it's just like we need just like somebody who understand basic market research that can use QPS to do the simple projects right away. So where you got projects like you can do a complex analysis such as complex variables, tables, and good thing is MRDCL works really well in producing like complex table efficiently in some research, something like that. So with that, we want to look at the data in there and get the result to be on the plug so that the work will be carried out in QPSMR or MRDCL. So that can really explore more depth if you wanted to push in CYS platform. That's the CYS platform that we have. So that someone can produce an online dashboard. So it's something like you can track a study that can all be done in real time. So that's the good thing in scenario 2 that we have. That's actually the data in online dashboard that would benefit our most clients that we have. So in scenario 3, what we have in scenario 3, this is a company who mainly like do some paper survey, like if they want to automate their PowerPoint presentation, or they have some clients that want to do their own secondary analysis. That's going to be the scenario 3. We might suggest that you might use QPS to collect the data, like QPSMR to collect the data and to enter it into the software. Like QPSMR is for analysis itself because it's mainly directly, and we can put it in Resolve. So that's gonna be it. In Resolve, it can do some tables and charts. And if they want a secondary analysis, it can go on to Resolve as well. That's all about scenario 3. So many clients really want to do that in their analysis. So in scenario 4, what we can see that is online and CATI survey. So where you want online and CATI survey, either to run like side by side, or some projects in online and others are CATI surveys. They actually need more about automate some reports. So a SNAP and QPSMR are both triple S. I believe we all know the triple S is. That's a compatible linking data. So it's directly, if the SNAP has a powerful tool to produce, actually SNAP is a powerful tool to produce smart reports, something like that. So there, this is where somebody is doing online and CATI surveys and analysis to go, or you who wanted to have a good or to get some reporting. So just to give you some small insight, smart reporting is where you can make reports. This is the conditional, where you can get the conditional result in your data. For example, for you to help you more improve your performance. So it's about, smart report is all about producing reports that's conditional on the data that's actually calculated. So we can see here in the PowerPoint that we have, like the SNAP is a great for online part and for smart reporting, and actually QPS handles CATI surveys. QPSMR is handle CATI surveys, and because they are both, again, triple S compliant, which is very a good thing that will supporting 50 companies in market research. And actually all our product, the good thing is all our product is triple S compliant. So SNAP and QPS data can be pulled together so that you can do smart reportings, even if you have like, if you wanted to do some surveys that are mix of online or CATI, you can pull them that together. So, but it goes on like a separate online CATI if you wanted to transfer data from one to another. That's actually a very easy way if you wanted to do that. So we can see the next slide, which is the scenario 5, which is the customer feedback. So we see here where the CYS does the whole job, fairly straightforward. So the CYS platform. So where you can experience feedback or employee surveys where you want NPS. So NPS means a net promoter scores. So CSAT, I know everyone is familiar with CSAT, and that's actually used for tracking study. So CYS platform will give you a high quality online dashboard for you to view the results. So for example, you may want to merge it to other business data such as sales, advertising, targets, or so on. That's really a good thing. So this is where you can do customer feedback, or if you wanted to do tracking or do a short questionnaires where you can recommend a service, how satisfied they are when they use it again. So this type of question where you typically want to get things like net promoter scores or CSAT done on the types of feedback questionnaires that we have in analysis. It's a key performance indicator, so that they can use analysis in the data, something like that. So in web pages, the data visualize the tools, and you can actually put that all together in one page. It's actually very convenient to everyone that is using to see Snap, like to do it quickly. So CYS platform does all that in one. So that's the good thing in CYS platform. And lastly, we have a scenario 5 plus that I can show you. It is the same thing again. But you might have another survey that has a tracking study. So not only that you're doing some customer feedback, but it's actually doing a survey that can actually get to use your brands, which is meaning to say it's completely separate surveys, which if you wanted to merge in platform, something like that, and use the data, it can be merge them in MRDCL. So that's actually this particular slide is actually highlighting the CYS platform MRDCL, but it may come into Snap or QPSMR in other software, particularly sample. So in scenario 5 plus, it actually goes one step further where you can merge data from another. Like probably if you wanted to have a bigger survey on it, or like using for MRDCL or some sources. But again, this is usually be the data for tracking studies that are run can run monthly or quarterly. So you can do a sample that can merge them into the data from MRDCL. So it's actually a completely separate survey where it comes off to somewhere or else or like non-MRDCL products. So that's all about the scenario 1 to 5 that we have in some of the products that maybe actually can help you more to realize what our products is and decide more about it that can help your company. So the message that we wanted to put here in those scenarios that we have is where you can handle if you are handling every project or you can handle every project in the same way, there will be some a way by changing what you do, or you can bring yourself more in the business and service customer better or more. So I think about you can think about what you're doing and see whether there's a different ways you could actually achieve more and get more software and be more productive in business. So I know you're attending this webinar for you to know more what exactly we can give to our clients. So I hope that these scenarios can help you to decide more what specific products that you can get in MRDC. So thank you for that. Let me hand it over to Phil to discuss more about our products and to show you the overview that we have in MRDC software products. So Phil, thank you.
Thanks very much, Nikki. All right, so I'm just going to do a very quick run through of each of our products here. Clearly what Nikki packed in there to about 10, 15, 12, 15 minutes was a lot of information, which was obviously quite hard to take all in one go because there was so much information there. This video will be available afterwards, but of course you can always contact us to talk more about what your particular needs are. So I just want to give you a very quick snapshot, and that's not a pun on snap, of each of the products that Nikki and I have been talking about, just to sort of slightly bring them to life and to remind you. So we talked about Snap quite a lot today, and that's probably the nearest we come to an end-to-end tool. So that has tools in it for data collection, so you can set up online questionnaires, or it produces also quite nice looking paper, or very nice looking paper questionnaires that you can use to administer surveys. So it also does CAPI as well, and produce CAPI screens so that interviewers can conduct surveys using a tablet or something like that. It produces tabulations, so you can get pretty standard looking cross tabulations with banners across the top, some statistics and so on. What I would call sort of fairly basic charts that you can get out, sort of different colors, different schema and so on that you can use there to produce different charts. And the one thing that I think perhaps is worth just spending 30 seconds on is it also has this tool for what's called smart reporting. And if I can very quickly try to explain what smart reporting is, because it's a sort of hidden feature, if you like, of Snap that many Snap users don't know about even. It's not only the ability to produce a report with charts and so on, or infographics embedded in it, it's the ability to produce a report that is dependent on the data that it happens to show. An example of this might be if you're doing a report for every outlet or every region, for example, for perhaps 10 regions in a country, for regional managers or something like that, the content of each report that's produced could be different based on the results in there. So as a simple example, for example, if one region performed well, you could put out some congratulatory message saying that and telling them what the best 3 things that they performed in were, and the 3 things that would get them an even higher score. Whereas if someone or region performed poorly, you could put an entirely different message out and set them targets that they need to achieve in the next 3 months, for example, and have a different looking report because they hadn't scored well. So that's a sort of example of a smart report, but it's something that's very powerful, and actually it's something we're running a separate KwikLearn webinar at the end of May. I think that's the last Wednesday in May, and you'll obviously get notified of that in about 5 weeks' time, that would be. So on to QPSMR. So QPSMR, a much more functional office-based tool, if you like, in the sense that it's not made to look perhaps quite as attractive as what Snap does. So this is for collecting data. So an interviewer can click on the responses here to take answers from respondents. That's whether they're paper questionnaires that they're keying in data from, or whether they're sitting with a headset conducting telephone interviews. They can produce cross tabulations, and they can enhance those tabulations by putting them into Excel or something like that. So that's the sort of scope, if you like, of QPSMR. Easy software to use, a bit like Snap. Snap's easy to use, although the smart reporting part does need a little bit more skill and practice to actually get very competent at. But QPS and Snap generally are very easy bits of software to use. And then we come to MRDCL and Resolve. Now, MRDCL is a scripting language, so that takes a lot more training and a lot more expertise and the right type of staff to get the real benefit out of it. MRDCL is a scripting language, whereas Resolve isn't a scripting language. It's an easy to use piece of software, but it can incorporate bits of code that come from MRDCL to do advanced analytics. Now we're going to run a separate session on this, so I'm not going to try and describe this in 30 seconds, but Resolve has the ability to produce pretty much any analysis that you want or that you could do through a scripting language through a friendly user interface. So I put them together here because their functionality effectively is the same. They're just different ways of doing it. So again, you can produce tables like this as we saw with QPS. Remember, as Nikki said, QPS and MRDCL are the same family, so the outputs are quite similar. MRDCL achieves this by using a scripting language like this, which is one of a small number of scripting languages available in the market research arena. So you have to learn that particular syntax and how to use it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. But once you've got it working, it has some huge efficiencies in there that can reduce your data processing time by enormous amounts, and sometimes like a tenth of the time or even less than that. Moving on, MRDCL and Resolve are going to have, this is not in the software yet, hence the 2 asterisks, charting and automating reporting tools. So if you've got a chart or a page like this in Excel, or you've got some of those types of information or infographics in a PowerPoint presentation, by the end of this year, there'll be a module that allows you to do that with both MRDCL and Resolve, so that you can really fully automate your reporting. And what that will mean is, let's say you run a quarterly tracking study, you'll just be able to rerun the tables and update your presentation or your Excel reports, whatever it is you're doing, automatically. So that really will be a very important new power feature that we're offering. And I should say that all these bits of software, Nikki did mention this, that all our software are compatible with each other because they all adhere to the SSS standard. There's about 50 bits of software now in market research that adhere to the SSS standard. Personally, I wouldn't use any of those that don't adhere to SSS standard, because it means you're trapped in that software forever and won't be able to get your data out, or it's unlikely you'll be able to get your data out. Whereas the SSS compliant packages, which I say number about 50 now, mean that you should be able to move projects from one to another very, very easily. Finally, the Seaways platform that we talked about. So this is used for customer experience feedback. So you can set up questionnaires that come up on your desktop, on tablets, or on your smartphones. It has, and it's something I can't cover in a short period of time here, but I'm covering it next week. So next week's webinar is about the Seaways platform, so I will cover it properly next week. But it has some very complete data management tools in there. Now, data management is a fairly unexciting topic, and it's not something that tends to excite people, but believe me, if you're going to produce online dashboards, managing the data efficiently and effectively is actually one of the most important things. I know the users see how nice the online dashboard looks, but actually the data management is a very, very important part of it. And there are one or two products in the market that just don't have those tools in them to manage your data. But that's a topic for next week. So if producing online dashboards is something you're interested in, please register for that next week, and you'll get the notice through in the coming days. So CYS predominantly, as far as the if you like, what people see is the online dashboards, where you can produce dashboards both on your desktop or on your mobile device, so you can use these dashboards while you're on the go, which is something that a lot of people don't offer, so that you can just literally be sitting in a meeting, plug into a dashboard, drill down into the data, and see that if it comes up at a meeting, you want to know what people in region 1 are saying compared to region 8, where you ran an advertising campaign, you can just produce that on your phone in a meeting. So really powerful stuff. But we'll be covering that in a lot more detail next week, and looking at some of the things that you can do in dashboards, but also talking about how you can get different sources of data in there. Because one of the things I've always felt quite strongly about is that market research data is often wasted, I think, because it's not often presented alongside other business data, such as sales data, advertising spend targets, and all those sorts of things, and other KPIs that drive a lot of the way big companies operate their businesses. So we've looked at 3 different things originally. I added 2 more on the end, like should you handle every project the same, and can you bring in more business by having more software? I don't know if I've answered those questions. It's a lot to cover in 45 minutes. I'd ask you to think about one more, because it's something that's really underestimated, is can you be more productive? Because I do see people from time to time using software that's not really suited to the task, and it ends up taking them a lot of time to produce what it is they want to do, particularly actually again in data management. I've often seen people spend an inordinate amount of time moving data from one system to another, and that just shouldn't be so. So hopefully this webinar's opened up your thoughts. I'm happy to take any questions that come through. Or perhaps your questions are much more specific about your individual business, and you need to frame that in an email to us, or perhaps we need to go online to discuss. We're certainly happy to do that. But if you've got any questions, we'll try and take them in the remaining time, and follow on from there. So there is a question, I believe. So just give me a minute. I think
there is a question. Can I use your software to conduct offline survey?
Yep, good question. The question is, can the software be used to conduct offline surveys? So again, you've got a choice of tools there that you can use. QPSMR it can do offline surveys for you, and probably the one that you really would want would be Snap, because Snap works offline and online. So I'm thinking here of CAPI, and the example would be where you want to send interviewers out with a tablet to do a survey, hopefully online with the tablet if there's an internet connection. But the way Snap works is that if there's no internet connection or the signal is poor, the data is stored on the device and uploaded at a later stage. So it lets you work offline or online, depending on whether you have that internet connection or not. So Snap's probably the best product for online or off, so you can work online or offline. Any other questions?
Yeah, does the Snap support recording and photo capture?
Yes, it does. Yes, so that's another question there about Snap. Both Snap and the Seaways platform let you capture pictures, audio, video, and let you do the reverse way around where you can play audio, video, or pictures. So, yeah, all those things can be done in either the Seaways platform or in Snap. So, yeah, that's all good. So we haven't really covered detailed questions about or detailed issues about any of the products today, because obviously we're covering quite a lot in one 45-minute session. But you know, Nikki's email address is on the bottom left-hand corner of the slide now. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to her. Is there any more, Nikki, or is that it?
That's it.
That's it for now. Okay. Well, what I'd ask you to do is to perhaps reflect on today's webinar. We've tried to give different ways of working and thinking about the importance of perhaps being flexible to work different ways. One of the things that I like always in business and just generally in life actually is the idea of setting us a challenge. So I set at the beginning a challenge for you, which was, can you think of a software tool that would make your business better? Whether that's winning more business, whether that's doing something more efficiently, taking a pain point or a bottleneck out of your process, that would make just perhaps your life easier. Perhaps not save you money even, but just make your life easier. Perhaps make sometimes when you remove these bottlenecks, you actually don't just perhaps save money only, but you also don't make so many mistakes, for example. So that's my challenge to you. But in return, I'm happy you set a challenge to us, and I'd like you to set a challenge to us. And if you can think of something that, you know, doesn't quite work in what you do at the moment, by all means, set us a challenge. We'll come up with a solution as best we can. We're quite open to the fact that our software doesn't solve every problem out there. We know a lot about the rest of the software market, and it might be we recommend someone else's software, and we're happy to do just that if that's the best scenario for you. So please feel free to set us a challenge. I think one or two more questions have come through. Is that right, Nikki, or is that it?
Yeah, I think I have one last question. Is it
one
possible?
last question.
It is possible that the data collected will be sent to our server.
Can the data collection be on your server? Yes, it is possible. Certainly with Snap, you can have most people use Snap on the Snap's own servers, but yes, if you want an installation that puts it on your own server, you can do that. It is a more expensive option than using the Snap server, but there is a big gain the other way on it, and that there's no fees for any interviews. So whether you collect 100 records or 1 million records, there's no more fees to pay. So if you're if you're collecting large amounts, that would be a very economic way of doing it, in fact, and a recommended way of doing it. But yep, you can connect Snap on your own server. The other products, QPS is a desktop tool anyway, so if you use QPS for CATI or for paper surveys, that would all by default be on your own systems.
Yeah, another question, follow-up question. The data
Sure.
collected by us save on your server?
Sorry, can you say that again, Nikki?
The data collected by us save on your server?
The data's for most people, for Snap, it's collected on the Snap server, on our servers, but if you want it to be on your own server, you can have it installed on your own server as well. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, please drop us an email. I may have misunderstood that question. Please drop us an email and we'll certainly answer it. Send it to Nikki, whose email address is now slightly obscured in the bottom left-hand corner, nikki.sungar@mrdcsoftware.com, and we'll answer that. So I think we'll wrap up there. Thank you all for attending. I hope it's given you some ideas and some thoughts. I like the idea of challenging people to think of their bottlenecks and things that don't work necessarily in their day-to-day life, or things that could be better. one of the things I think really everybody in market research should be thinking about now, or most people in market research should be thinking about now, is getting data into online dashboards. I think as an industry, market research has been slow to provide data online, and if it has been provided online, it's only been for the biggest surveys where there's a big budget. I think the Seaways platform offers an opportunity to put every project online, or nearly every project online, and in a dashboard, so that your clients can look into it, drill into it, and give that data a much higher profile within their company as well, so that, you know, that concept of market research data never getting to the boardroom, I think with an online dashboard, it pushes it one step nearer to the to you as a company being pushed into the boardroom more. So on that note, I'm going to close. Thank you all for attending. Next week we are having a webinar, which is in the KwikLearn series, which is focusing entirely on the Seaways platform and collecting data and putting it into dashboards. So I hope to see as many of you as we can then. But thank you all for joining us, and we hope it was all useful to you. And don't forget, set us a challenge. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.